Okay, so hey guys, welcome to another video here at TrainFX. My name is Josh, as you know, founder of this lovely trading community that we do have here. Discord is in the bio of the description of this video. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna kick things off right straight into it. We're looking at the charts. We're going to look at possible trade setups that we could get into for this coming week, this new coming up week, right? With that being said, we did have a pretty good week prior. However, we did run into a little bit of losses that could have been avoidable, that were avoidable. And, this is just part of trading. And these are things that happen sometimes as you trade with price action. There's a lot of volatility at times. Certain news events do cause prices start moving differently, behaving in different ways prior to your initial bias. And it's okay. All right. And I just want to get out of the way that it's okay to be in a position where your initial bias was correct, but for whatever reason, maybe there was some news release or some sort of event that caused price volatility and for the markets to shift into the opposite direction. And you see, this is what happened here for us actually, right? So during the day of February the 3rd, around there, right, we did have some news, and I just want to show you guys this to really get it out of the way. For some people, they're like, oh, wow, he had a loss. Why did he lose? All right. So let's just look at it. If we're looking at the 3rd of February, we can see right here, we had two news events, right? One being the GBP, the BOE Bank of England interest rate decision, right? So you can see what the previous was, 0.25%, and the consensus was that the interest rates will move higher. So as you know, as interest rates rise, it's considered good for a currency, right? So we were expecting to see some GBP strength, and that is what we saw at the initial beginning of this news release. Once we did get that confirmation that the consensus was, actually the actual value that we got during that period, right? So as you see, the interest rates itself actually increased, right, by 0.25, right? So that caused the initial move on the GBP, Euro GBP here, where price pushed down, and we got this sort of spike right here, right? And as you see, we had a reversal, right? Price quickly pulled back up after on that 1 hour, right? Not quickly, but at the ending of that candle, price pulled back, right? If we go to the lower time frame, we can see when this happened, right? So around 30 minutes in 30 minutes afterwards, price pulled back on that candle, right? And then price started to continue moving higher from there. What happened at this point of time? Even though we did have the initial bias with that 0.5% being the actual value that we did got, right? We also had ECB interest rate decisions, and we also had an ECB news event, right? Press conference at that point of time. So at that point, what we had was the ECB basically saying that they're on track to increasing their monetary policy as early as December of this year, right? Which is a little bit quicker than expected, which caused price to actually rocket in favor of the euro, right? Because as you know, the euro has been more lapsed with their monetary policy statements and their stance on their monetary policies, right? So when we did have this sort of news event, it was kind of highly impacting on the euro itself, right? So you see price just rocketed afterwards that and continued moving up as things look a little bit more optimistic for the euro. Okay, so that is just one thing to clear and get out of the way. So continuing moving into this week, what could we see? What could we get into setups that we could possibly look at? Overall, I'm still bearish on something like this Euro GBP, just because we have to look at it at a vantage point, right? We have to look at it in terms of okay, our current reality versus the expectations, right? So with the ECB, even though the European Union is saying that they're on track to increasing their interest rates and all of that, right? Which is very bullish for the euro dollar. That is still something we need to see happening in December. The time between now and that is a very long period. So anything could happen between now and then, right? Maybe the ECB could shift their actual stance depending on what their economic outlook is looking like. However, with the GBP, with the Bank of England, right, we did have that interest rates increase, right? We do know the current position at where the Bank of England is at. Therefore, we could say with a little bit more of a certainty that we could be a little bit more bullish on the GBP compared to the euro dollar, even though we do have that sort of optimism playing on the euro right now. Looking at it right at this point, right, overall we are in a downtrend, right, kind of choppy, but we could see clearly that we still are in largely a downtrend movement, right? Looking here, the daily price has come into this point of a daily rejection area, right? So we had right here on this day of December 16th, price rejected from this area. We got a push down, continuing with this overall sort of channel trend that we are seeing, right? If we just throw this up, something like this, right? So we do have a channel trend to the downside. If we're looking at the 4 hour and the 1 hour, we can see that more clearly. This is an area that we should pay attention to of support and resistance. Right, price went into that area right here, pulled up. Then we had a strong bearish candle pushing through that area, right, representing more sellers within the market at that point of time, and that continuation to the downside. So as we push higher right here into this area, what we could see or what we could expect from investors is that at this point, we would see some taken away of buy positions right here, right? Because one, we already identify we are in a downtrend on the overall terms, on the overall chart itself, daily. If we look at the weekly, it will be the same, right? So we can see some profit taken right at this area. Therefore, the buying pressure would actually decrease. We could see some more selling actually start happening at this area. So this right here is a very nice discounted area we could probably get into for a sell, possibly targeting bottom of this range, right? Overall, because we still are heavy on the GBP buys compared to the euro, right? This little optimism right here, it is short lasting. It was quite the move, but again, we do have some time until we see the ECB take actions. So this is something that has a lot of potential to actually play out, right? So if we put our stop loss right above this area right here, where we do have these candle wicks, right? And we're looking for continuation, possibly all the way to down here, right? So this is something that is very possible, right? This is a trade I would be looking forward into getting into as markets open, right? Strong rejection from this area, a possible continuation down as we see some profit taken from investors and some selling starting to happen from those large companies, right? So this is something I'm looking forward to. Euro GBP looking for sells. Right. Looking at the other charts, let's see what we have happening, right? CAD CHF, a little choppy. AD USD, I did get into the trade. Actually didn't get into this trade, but was a potential trade I called out here into the Discord, right? As price pushed a little bit lower right here, we did see this sort of rejection off of this area right here in the overall downtrend, showing some more uptrending movement as we did have a weaker USD and price continued to push higher. At this point, what I was looking at when we took this trade right here was the overall trend and the rejection from this area, right? So we could see that we did have clear movement to the downside from there and was looking for that retest and a possible continuation. However, we did have some very some very weak USD data. This was around 1st of February. So let's just look back at the first, right? Looking at the first, all right, we had a dual job opening, everything looked good. Um, Actually, everything was good with the USD. So for whatever reason, we did have that USD failing to continue, right? We did have some other stuff to come out, which was unemployment and RBA speech from Gov Louis. But overall, we did have a pretty good USD. When we did have that weak USD, that was around here with the non-farm NFP, and we also have the initial jobless claims coming out a little bit on the better side. But overall, it was still weak compared to the consensus that I was looking at, right? Um, it wasn't that far off from consensus, right? And jobless claims continued was weaker as well as the weekly claims for average weekly claims for week average weekly claims. Sorry, right. So looking overall, there was no real reason to see the USD actually fail and to looking to continue with that downward move from here on AED USD. Well, for whatever reason, it did happen. At that point, with the AED news that we did have, wasn't expecting much. So a continuation was looking a little bit more feasible as price continued to move lower with the overall trend, right? If you look on the daily, right, we can see right around here, we do have these daily rejection wicks, right? So this was a point of interest as price pulled higher. Was looking to see whether we'll get a rejection from this area or maybe price will push up, right? So that was one from a technical analysis point. Looking at the 4 hour here, you can see it a little bit more clearly as well. Price retested here. We got steeper retest here. At that point, it was looking pretty good for a continuation to the low side, right? And we took that sell right around this area here, and even another sell right here as price broke this area of support, right? So you can see it a little bit more clearly. Price broke this area of support. At that point, we got in and looking for a continuation to move lower, right? So this is something I'm looking to see a continuation of the current position that I do have running here. However, looking to enter a new trade on AD USD, I think not. Unless we actually see some continuation, maybe a move lower to this level here. We'll have to be a little bit patient for that. But unless we see a move lower, then I'm not too keen on entering any new positions on AD/USD just as yet, right? So a break of this level, maybe a retest, and then a continuation lower. That is something I'll be looking forward to. Euro USD. Same thing here, right? So the euro did have that little positivity, making it jump quite a bit, right? By a lot of pips, something that is very uncommon for the euro dollar, right? So by 200 pips, price pushed all the way to 200 pips on euro USD. And you can see that this isn't something that's consistent on all USD pairs. It was just with the euro and that euro released, right? Where we did get a little bit more of a positive hawkish outlook from the ECB, right? So continuing on with this, I'm looking for sells, right? I'm still looking for sells with this. On the daily, if you look here, we did come into this area, right? This daily rejection area price has pushed right here on the close of that day, right? Coming to the 4 hour. So what we'll be looking for is a possible, if prices continue higher, we'll look for trades above this area of resistance, right? Just because you have a higher probability of a continuation at that point rather than trying to trade early into this, trying to get into buy early or trading in the zone itself. You want to see a break above that area and then look for a possible continuation higher if the momentum and volume is there, right? But again, overall, what I'm looking to see, what is something more likely to happen, is that price investors just start taking their profits right into this level, right? We are not the only one that will be seeing this as a resistance area as well on the daily or weekly, but also investors, large hedge funds owners, a lot of other people who move the markets, who are actually causing the markets to move, they are also viewing this as well, right? And they'll be thinking the same thing psychologically, right? This is an area of resistance. It's a point where price had, you know, it had the time to actually push above this area, but it failed to do so, right? So it failed once. What is stopping it from doing that again, failing again? Especially when this original move here was just a little bit of um, optimistic push, right? This move was just based off of the optimism that we were seeing from the ECB about their more bullish stance on their monetary policies, right? So, with that being said, psychologically, this is an area where we'll start taking our profits, we'll start entering sells, and we'll actually see price actually push away from, right? So, on the Euro USD, I'm more biased on taking sells, possibly maybe to be a little bit more of cautious, right? To add a little bit more of confluence, we want to see price push below this area right here, just to be a little bit more on the safe side, right? Protect our capital and then continue moving on, right? So a correction of this entire move is something that is possible. So if I'm going to short, this is a possible short that I'll take, targeting right here at the beginning of that large move, and I'll put my stop loss somewhere right here above these wicks, right? Something with me, I like using tight stops just to maximize my yield when it is applicable, right? And this is a point where I think is very much I'm very much able to do so, just because we do have these hesitant candle formation right here, right? So you can see at the span of not one, not two, but about 4 hours, right? Price just danced around this area of resistance, right? Failing to push any higher, right? So that just gives us a little bit more of a confluence, right? It gives us a little bit more of a confluence that at this point we could probably see price continuing to push lower, right? Because it failed to push higher, not once, not twice, but 4 times at least, right? So we can now say that this is a strong area of resistance. Price is rejecting, and we're now looking to see a continuation move to the downside. All right, so this is something that I'm very likely to take as market opens, something I'll be looking forward to, right? Euro, sorry, GBP USD, nothing particularly looks, nice about this chart. We could see that we did have some upward movement here, right? Again, heavy on GBP buys. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, one thing to note here is this area of resistance slash support, right? So we can see if we're looking at this as an uptrend, right, where price is now starting to shift in value, right, because we do have that more bullish GBP. Price came here, rejected, came to the downside, we formed the support right around this area right here. Right, if we look at the 4 hour, maybe we could see that this is in line with another support level. If we just drag this out to the side, right, we can see that this is an area that has some importance, right? Multiple rejections. If we look into the left, coming to the right, we pushed higher. Price continued with this movement to the upside, right? So you had this continuing movement of a sort of a channel rejecting of this trend line, right? Continuing higher. We're now pushed lower right here, retested this area multiple times, came up, strong rejections right from here, a strong bearish candle. However, on the next 4 hour, we failed to continue with that movement, right? With that bearishness. So that is to say that we now see that the GBP is gaining some strength at this point. We could see some buying, some potential buying from investors, right? So this is something that also has the potential to play out, right? This is something I'll be looking towards getting into, something I would look at in particular. Just to be more conservative, I would enter this with a 0.5% risk at the starting of the day. You know, you start in the new week, there's no real reason to be risking 1% on each trade that you're looking to take. You could start off slowly and build yourself up. It's the starting of the week, there's also new opportunities as the week continues and progresses. But this is something that has potential to play out. Looking to be more conservative, however, you would like to see a bullish rejection, a strong bullish rejection, maybe a bullish engulfing candle of off of this support zone. CAD JPY, right guys. The CAD has been quite strong recently, right? The Canadian economy has been quite well to do, very robust in their monetary policies and overall economic outlook, right? We have seen nothing but strong and very incentive like news on the Canadian economy. So overall, I am a little bit more on the bullish side of the Canadian dollar. However, with everything that we do have going on with the US, currently we can state pairs such as CAD JPY or any other JPY pair in particular is something that I do not think would give you the best of yields. Just um just to recap, if you don't know, if you're new to trading or whatever the case might be, as the USD weakens, we do see a little bit more of a strength in the Japanese yen because it is considered a safe haven currency. That is to say, when we do have worsening or very bleak economic outlooks, right, overall on a global economic scale, we do see a rise in the Japanese yen strength just because it's considered a more safe, more a less volatile currency to hold in times of uncertainty. So, so currencies such as the Japanese yen, if you're looking at commodities, that would be such as gold. These are things that investors do put their money into, just to overall be a little bit more wary of their concerns on the current economy. So something such as the CAD, Japanese yen, I'm not too particular in entering anything new in terms of a bias, building a bias of buys against the yen just because we do have that USD uncertainty. All right, so this, if we're looking at it overall, on the 4 hour, we can see that we do have this sort of support area, right? Price has rejected from multiple times. We are trading in a sort of range, so a breakout is apparent, right? We could possibly see a breakout either to the upside, right? Depending on what news that we do have, because more or less we would only see these movements based off some sort of catalyst, right? We need some sort of catalyst for these moves to actually happen. That would be monetary policy statements, maybe a speech by one of the representative of the central banks of these economies. Who knows, right? Or maybe again something that would worsen the current U.S. Economic outlook that would cause the Japanese yen to move even lower. Well, move higher, such as the case would be, right? So we could see a possible breakout, maybe to the upside, maybe to the downside. I would say more likely to the downside overall on these yen pairs, right? If we're looking at the current week, this week upcoming, what we do have, right? Let's see if we do have any news coming out for either of these. We do have some USD news come out on oil. That's not too much of a high impact in news overall, to cause the movement that we would see. Uh, Initial jobless claims, inflation rate, core inflation rate on Tuesday. This is something that could potentially impact the Japanese yen, depending on what the numbers are looking like. As you see, if we're looking to the right here, the actual and consensus, we do see that the consensus overall that we are looking at something like continuing jobless claims. You want to see a lower number, so we do have that, a lower number than previous. So this is would be considered good, right? We are looking at a better number compared to the previous. So if this does come out, that would be good for the US. Right, jobless claims. That means how many people did apply for, if we're reading it here, right? First time jobless claims have a significant impact on financial markets, since in contrast to continuous claims data, which monitors the number of people receiving unemployment benefits, first time jobless claims measure fresh and developing unemployment. Right, so that is looking at the amount of people that have filed for unemployment of for this year, right, and for the month of February. So depending on the numbers, we would probably see a lower move in favor of the Japanese yen, just because of that worsening US economic outlook. So that is something that we would have to potentially look out for on Tuesday, right? So Japanese yen buys would probably look good. Overall, the US economy isn't doing too hot, so that is something that has a lot of potential to gain some yields on. AD CAD, nothing particularly looks too good about this. Yeah, I'm not even gonna go over that, guys. NZD CAD, overall, the NZD hasn't been that much of a. Sorry, the NZD hasn't really been that much of a had much of movement based off their policies or anything like that. Nothing new really. But looking at the chart here, we could see that on the 4 hour, we do have some upward momentum right here, right? Sort of channel trending formation, right? We do have sort of a channel forming, right? So this is what we're currently seeing. Price came right here, rejected from the area, started pushing higher a little bit here. We came into this zone. So a possible push above this zone looks possible, right? It looks plausible that we could possibly see a push above this area, right? If we do get that, we could look for a retest of these highs right here, and then a continuation moving onward, right? If we're looking at this week, again, we need to be aware of any economic outlooks, any events to come out related to the NZD and the Canadian dollar. Right, we do have card balance trade. Looking for the high impact things only, guys, right? So nothing really, right? 4 days from now, again on Tuesday, where we do have a large amount of news. We have NCD business, NZ PMI, right? So if you don't know what this is, let's just go over quickly. It's a composite indicator based on the diffusion indices for production, new orders, deliveries, inventories, and employment. The business NZ performance of manufacturing index, right, also known as PMI, measures the performance of manufacturing in New Zealand. A value above 50 indicates that the manufacturing sector has increased in comparison to the previous month. A rating below 50 indicates that the manufacturing sector has declined, and a value of 50 shows that there has been no change. Right, so a higher than expected figure is viewed as positive, while lower is just viewed as negative. Right, so the latest release that we did have, the previous one, was 53.7, right? So we are looking currently at the consensus being 54, a little bit better, right? Overall, that is viewed as positive, but in terms of the impact that has on the NCD, I won't say there's much of an impact. Yes, it might cause maybe some move, maybe 10, maybe 30 pips, um, but we'll see, right, how that affects the overall chart. We will only know as the week starts and as price continue moving on. Same thing here with NZD USD. Not much to look at really. Looking at the 4 hour, we did have this rejection right around here. This is what I was looking at for mainly on the AD USD trade, right? Was looking for that rejection from that area of resistance, right? That clear area where price was pushing lower from. Right, price pushed here, sort of stalled out right around this area. Not looking for anything really in particular there. So more or less, guys, so far what we are looking at for the starting of the week are just euro trades, right? This again, looking at the daily area of resistance on the daily time frame, right? Going down to the 4 hour, again, a little bit more clearer out as well, right? So price pushed up again, that is from the ECB positivity. Just looking for that retracement, that rejection from these daily highs right here. So this is another possible euro short that we can see happening for more potential gains to the starting of that move, right? So something like this. And that's basically it, guys. There's nothing much really again to say. This was another trade here. One here, price came down here. We entered again right around here. This was 4.3% when around. So alright. Yeah, that seems like it, guys. A lot of these pairs I just watch. I don't really particularly trade them as much anymore. Really focusing on a few, right? Especially when we do have certain pairs correlating with each other. I'll choose the best out of the pairs out of those, such as like the JPY pairs that do give a higher yield and a little bit more of fundamental background to basically support our bias, our price action bias, right? So yeah, just for example, something like this, CHF JPY with GBP JPY and Euro JPY, right? We know why we would enter the Euro JPY, right? And we know why we'll probably enter the GBP JPY as well, rather if it's for buys or sells, right? In particular, GBP JPY, we look primarily for buys just because we are heavily more bullish on the GBP. However, again, we need to be aware of the fundamentals and economic situation between these economies, right? So, as the USD state of affairs actually worsens, we would see that increase in the JPY strength, right? So, we would be more cautious of actually entering buys, even though we are heavy on the GBP, more bullish on that, right? And a lot of these, there's a lot of different factors that you should be aware of when you're trading, especially if you're trading with small capital and you're looking at multiple cross pairs, right? Or pairs that seem to correlate with each other. You need to be more cautious and aware of the situation. Therefore, you don't make any careless or unnecessary mistakes or incur any unnecessary losses, right? Something that you should always try to improve on as a trader is refining your understanding of fundamentals and how that plays into your actual trading strategy using price action, right? So that's it for this, guys. I'm not gonna go over all of these pairs. The trades that we are taking, the trades that I am taking, would be in the Discord, the private VIP Discord channel, right? I would try to send a few um in the public Discord channel as well. You know, I am about helping everyone in order to gain more capital and understanding trading a little bit more better. Those who have a sort of a love for trading would understand this as well, right? I'm not trying to profit off of anyone. But that being said, as well, guys, you need to understand that I put a lot of time, a lot of effort into my trading. It's a craft that I spent a lot of time developing. So you could see where it comes to a point where when you're trading and you're sharing information, there needs to be sort of a mutual exchange, so to speak. All right, guys, but that is it for this video. I hope you learned something out of it. Hope that you know, gain some knowledge, some understanding from it. And if you like this video and you want to see more, then just leave a like, leave a comment. Link to the Discord would be in the description and in the first comment of the video as well. That is it. Hope everyone has a great trading week. Peace.